Welcome to tonight's video. We're going to talk about how grammar can help you add specific details to your writing. Our objectives tonight are to look at participle phrases and specific verbs and prepositional phrases as ways to get good detail into your writing. Just a few reminders before we get on with the video. We've already talked about this with our editing invitations. Remember that grammar only exists where there is a reader. Grammar is kind of like the rules of the road, so that everyone who reads English agrees that it's going to be written in a certain way. So the job of grammar is to make the text more reader-friendly for the reader and to help the writer make conscious choices that's going to get the point across. Grammar also helps you to focus your reader's eye on what's important. It also helps you show your reader what you think is important rather than tell them. You want the reader to actually be making a movie in their head of the two-dimensional words on your page, and grammatical forms will help you do that. Grammatical structures like participle and prepositional phrases are ways to put very sharp, concrete detail into your writing without getting bogged down in lots of adjectives and adverbs. Some important definitions for this lesson, and you will be required to have these in your notebook. They will be on any test you have to take. A participle, and we've already talked about this in class, it's the ing form of a verb when we use it to describe something. The developing storm approached. Storm is the subject and approached is the verb. Developing is describing the storm. The barking, and there should be dog in here, sorry about that. The barking dog woke up the neighbors. Dog is the subject, woke is the verb, barking describes the dog. I can take the participle barking and make it a phrase. A phrase is the participle and any words that modify it. Barking shrilly at everything that moved, the dog woke up the neighborhood. Dog is still the subject, woke is still the verb. Here is a participle phrase. It's an introductory phrase, so it's got a comma. It describes the dog. A couple of other definitions. A preposition, it's a part of speech. A preposition is a word. It links nouns and pronouns to each other or other parts of the sentence. Prepositions give the reader an idea of where or when. On the table, beneath the table, against the table, beside the table. I had a professor in college that said you could pick out a preposition if you could say the dog ran, and then you could fill the word in there with after the house. The dog ran behind the house. The dog ran into the house. The dog ran in the house. The dog ran through the house. The dog jumped over. The dog ran over the house. Prepositions give you an idea of time or place. Some prepositions are for, with, under, behind, above, at, before, from, during, down, by, with. They're almost always combined with other words and prepositional phrases. I guess I should say they're always. I can't remember a time I ever saw a preposition alone. And prepositional phrases always have the same structure. There's always the preposition first. That's the marker that you have a phrase. And then there's an adjective or two. And there's always a noun or a pronoun. Prepositions don't ever go out without a noun or a pronoun, just like fanboys don't go without a comma. So we're going to be talking about participles, participle phrases, prepositions, prepositional phrases, and verbs. The first thing we're going to talk about is using participles and participle phrases to add concrete detail for the reader. Here's my example sentence. The diamond-backed rattlesnake attacked its prey. Okay. I'm going to add a participle. Hissing. It's a participle because there's no helping verb. Hissing, slithering, and coiling. The diamond-backed rattlesnake attacked its prey. You can really see that now, can't you? Ugh. All right, now I'm going to turn two of these into phrases. Hissing their forked red tongues. And coiling their cold bodies. Still an introductory phrase, so it's got to have a comma. The diamond-backed rattlesnake attacked its prey. Look at the first. The diamond-backed rattlesnake attacked its prey, hissing their forked red tongues and coiling their cold bodies. The diamond-backed snakes. Ugh. Participles and participle phrases add action, and that's what we want. You want your reader to be able to play a movie in their mind. You want them to see it rather than hear it. They also let you show that there's more than one action going on at the same time, like coiling and hissing. All right, I want you to stop the video here. Copy these two sentences into your notes and play around with adding participles and participle phrases to them. Try adding participles and then a participle phrase to each one of these. I will be looking for them in your notes tomorrow in class. The diver peered at the specimen, and this should be mountain. The mountain climber edged along the cliff. The second grammar structure we're going to look at that's going to help you add concrete detail to your idea is to look at verbs. Nouns, the only thing you can do with a noun is kind of show a picture of still images. But verbs are where you get the action, and that's where the video in the reader's mind comes from. You want to keep the action moving, especially if you're writing nonfiction. You want your reader to be interested. You want to avoid blah verbs like looked, moved, and went. It's very hard to see those verbs. Instead, you want to think about using verbs as a way to paint specific action. So instead of looked, I could say he snapped his eyes at the girl. Instead of saying his hands moved over his face, I could say his fingers whispered over his cheek. And instead of saying he went out the back door, I could say he dodged, danced, and flitted out of range out the back door. These verbs give me something to see. Remember that the verbs are the engines of your sentences. They're the engines of your writing, and they drive the images that the readers form. All right, look at what I've done to Mark Twain. This is kind of a shame. Mark Twain's in blue and I'm in red. Look at the difference between the verbs in his and the verbs in mine. They presently emerged, great verb, into the clump of sumac bushes, looking warily out. They found the coast clear and were soon launching, were is the helping verb there, were launching and were smoking in the skiff. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, they pushed out and got underway. Tom skimmed up the shore through the long twilight, chatting cheerily with Huck, and landed shortly after dark. Now here's my masterpiece, or not so much. They presently came out of the bushes. The coast was clear, so they got in the skiff. They had lunch and smoked. As the sun went down, they went out into the water. Tom moved along the shore. He talked and then came back to the shore shortly after dark. Same idea, but look at the difference the verbs made in that one. Specific, concrete actions make all the difference. The third grammatical structure is with prepositional phrases. Prepositional phrases are a way to avoid using adjectives. Adjectives are really not a very good way of describing something, and adjectives usually prop up a weak noun or verb. You have to be careful when you use adjectives. Many adjectives paint blank pictures. Adjectives like beautiful, beautiful mountains, fun, a fun time. They're formless and they end up being more like an opinion than a describer for the reader. Other adjectives here are good, bad, hard, happy, sad, mad. All of those really don't give the reader anything to see. Look at the list of adjectives I've put down here. Then close your eyes and try to visualize a picture. Ambitious, annoying, fearful, nervous, responsible, sentimental, shy, brave, caring, happy, there's that happy, reliable, shy, religious, vain. They're all adjectives, but they don't do very much for the writing. They're sterile and they're blank. They give the reader absolutely nothing concrete to see. And as a writer, you do not want the reader putting their own picture in. You want them to see your picture, not whatever they want. So if you're talking about someone who is angry, you want them to picture what you see as angry, not what they understand as angry. A second problem with adjectives is that too many of them kind of cancel each other out. Too many get rid of all of them. A way to think of too many adjectives is to think about taking a movie camera, turning it on, and laying it down on the seat, and it just takes random pictures. So you really don't have anything to think of. So adjectives have to be used very, very carefully. And one way to avoid the adjective trap is to use a prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrases are ways for the writer to add an image without a lot of blah adjectives that can still reach out and grab the reader. All right, look at my example. The child was sad. There's your adjective, sad. Now look what I did with prepositional phrases rather than the adjective sad. With droopy eyes, dark circles around her eyes, and teardrops on her cheek, the child broke my heart. Now, which one can you see? Sad or with droopy eyes, circles around their eyes, teardrops on her cheeks? Which one is easier to see? I took prepositional phrases and I substituted them for this blah adjective, sad. All right, I've done 3 strategies, and I want you to go into your writing when you're done with this video, and I want you to try them, and we're going to look at your experiments in class. If you don't have a draft started, then go into your writer's notebook and use something that you can use towards your draft that you need to get worked on this week. The first thing I want you to do is to look where the writing is general. Look for places where you could put in a participle or a participle phrase to make your details concrete and specific. Try to find at least 2 details of this. The second thing I want you to do is to go back into your writing and look for places where your verbs are weak and general. Is, am, are, was, walked, said, sat. Try and replace them with concrete, strong action verbs. 2 places for there as well. And finally, go back into your writing and look for places where you've used those blank adjectives, happy, sad, mad, glad. Try and take out those adjectives and add a prepositional phrase or 2 to your writing and see what it does. And again, I would like you to have at least 2 strategies, please. Remember to be an active viewer. Pause, rewind, rewatch as much as you need. Take good notes in your ISN, bulleted list, 2-column notes, a graphic organizer, whatever works for you, and any kind of note-taking that is going to allow you to use these notes as a reference when you're writing. Write a question, either one you still have or one to challenge your peers, at the bottom of your notes. Then go to NiceNet and post your summary, please. Have a good evening. I hope you enjoyed this video.